Good morning. Hello. Oh, brother. What are we what are we doing? Hi, Allie. What are we doing, Allie? Have you seen the news? It's nuts. That's what today we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the news. But holy Lord, it's not going to be an easy conversation. I got to be honest with you guys. It's stressful. This is crazy. It really is. Like, it's just like I feel like I'm obligated to talk to you guys about all the craziness that's been going on, which is crazy when you think about it, because literally with the whole coronavirus and the quarantine, like, that hasn't been crazy enough. And now on top of that, you have the George Floyd killing and the riots and the protests, and it's hard for someone, including me, a social studies teacher, but adults, your parents, people in the communities, it's hard for us to get our opinions straight and our heads wrapped around it. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about current events and what's been going on in America, and then we're going to try to put, like, I can't give you, like, obviously it's opinion based, so I can't give you a right or wrong answer here. But what I can do is try to help you understand how you should be structuring your own thoughts to make your own opinions. How are we going to talk about this when we're going to split to two sides, right or left? It's okay. There's nothing wrong with splitting to two sides, and there's nothing wrong with being right or left. I think that's where we need to start, James. I think we need to understand that we have to value each other's opinions. And that's what I think we're going to talk a little bit about today. And obviously, to the best of my ability, try to help you a little bit navigate the current events. But we're gonna not get into that quite yet. I'm gonna say hi first. Hi, everyone. How are you? Hi, Allie. Good morning. Hello, Mark. Hashtag gamer I see. Steven. Good to see you, sir. Who else is in here? Everyone just say hi in chat. If you're one of the 14 people watching right now, just say hi in chat. Alex. Hello, Alex. Ryan's here. It's good to see Ryan. Or at least see the name. Dante. Barry's got to be in here somewhere. He always is. Christian. Munch. Hello. Hello, Christian. Who else we got? Larissa Quick. Hello, Larissa. Haven't seen you in a while. How are you? Larissa. Yes, it's quite embarrassing, James. I just listened to it again. I don't know what I was thinking the other day. Olivia Koffel. Hi, Olivia. I missed 6th period, Olivia. I gotta be honest with you. Amelia, where you been, Amelia? I was looking for you on Friday. Amelia! I need to talk to you, Amelia. You and me need to have a conversation about the moving up ceremony, because you're part of the student council, right? I believe you are. Amelia, let me know if you're part of the student council. I think you are. And if you are, you need to be included in the moving up ceremony video. So we need to have a conversation, Amelia. I don't know why I keep saying Olivia. Amelia. I am. See, I knew it, Amelia. So you and I need to have a conversation. I'm thinking about having you say the national anthem on video. Do you feel comfortable videotaping yourself and saying the national anthem for all of the millions of people who are going to watch in the 8th grade and their families? It's not millions, but you know what I mean, Amelia. You get my drift, I think. Drop a like or eat your bike. What would that do to your teeth? I can sing. You don't have to sing it, Olivia. Slow your roll. Like, say it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. You say it. You don't sing it. I mean, I guess you could sing it. That would be cool. Who's it's you, Amelia? It's Steven. What are you, the secretary? Steven's the treasurer? So I want right? Steven, you're the treasurer. So I want Steven and Amelia, you both to record yourselves saying it together. Figure that one out. And then give me the video. That's what I want. Yeah. So, like, do a Zoom call with Amelia and you guys together say it, and I'll throw you guys in there. Because Nick Gentile is giving the speech, and so yeah, I know Noah and Nick. I got that. Steven should sing it. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Victoria, hello, Victoria. You're always so positive, Vicky. I like that. That makes me smile. Oh, that's really nice. That's super duper. So this week we have a question of the day. I'm going to be talking about in a little bit, so keep that posted. What else this week? Don't forget, you must, all of you must do your graduation moving up ceremony slides with your childhood picture and a modern picture. Make sure you're doing that. It is due by Friday. Don't make me hunt you down. That would be awkward, and I have no interest in getting awkward. So please get that in as soon as possible. As it is, I got to chase after your 8th grade teachers about their videos. Don't make me do it about your slides. So there you go. You did it, Derek. Does it look good? I would look at it, but it's kind of going to be a surprise. Sweet. Yeah, you could play on the flute. That's cool. Cool. Mark, that's good. That's good. Who else is in there? Olivia, did you do your slide yet? Amelia, did you do your slide yet? Huh? Where you been? Everyone must follow this statement while we talk today. We will value others' people's... Well, James, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut down the chat when I talk. That's what I'm going to do. So therefore, it's not going to be open for debate. Not yet, anyway. We got to wait for it to settle down a little bit before we can debate about it. It's too hot. It's too hot to debate. Right? And you shouldn't have an open debate via chat. Chat, that's where mistakes happen. I have to find a picture. Take one. You mean a childhood picture, Olivia? Because get dressed nice and have your moms take the picture, and there'll be your today picture. That's what I did. You did your slide, Amelia? That's excellent. Amelia, are you in a World War II military uniform? Because if you're not, you have to redo it. I only will accept. Oh, you need a childhood picture, Olivia? Okay. I can play the Star Spangled Banner on my guitar. We're good with that because I have Mrs. Pinto. Mrs. Pinto provided music, so we're good with that. Childhood picture. Oh, childhood picture. Yeah. Oh, good. I have to dress decently. I can't do that. What? Stop. Of course you can. You got to see what I'm wearing right now. It's embarrassing. I'm wearing shorts, but I'm not going to show you. I'm not going to show you that. I'm just going to show the top. The top. All right. How's it going, everyone? Allie, yeah, I need a childhood picture too. Ask your parents. Include your parents. Include the moms and the dads and the grandmas and the guardians. Include the parents. I learned how to tie a tie, so I am proud of myself. Yes, I was about your age when I learned how to tie a tie. You guys want to see a childhood picture of me? You guys want to see a childhood picture of the one and only Mr. V? We bring this out. Hold on. I got one. Let's go here. Hold on. Slow your roll. We're going to go, Larry. We're going to Google myself. So it's never good to Google yourself, but that's what we're going to do. Let's go to images. Oh, look at this. Look at this. That's me right there. All right. Hold on. This is the only time I recommend doing this. Do not go to Bing unless you're doing what I'm doing, because Bing never is what you want. Oh, there I am with my dad's. Oh, here we go. Here it is. Childhood picture of one Mr. Volger right here. That's me right there. That's a little Mr. Volger. This picture was probably taken 1983. My brother is the guy leaning on the man with the blue shirt, and the man with the blue shirt is my father. So there you go. There you go. There's a Mr. Volger's childhood picture. Olivia, don't use that one. You got to find your own. You heard? You can't be using Mr. Volger's childhood picture. But look how adorable that little blonde hair kid is, huh? If only I still had that hair, right? Just fell right off my head. It's crazy. By the time I was 19, I was bald like Lex Luthor. Not good. Yep. I got nothing to say. It's a marvelous picture. Thank you, Vicky. See, always positive. Always positive. So I was a dirty little kid. You got dirty knees and dirty hair and probably dirty fingernails. Disgusting. I was the kid that had like the melted like popsicle juice stuck on their face for like 6 days straight. Well, we have to worry about hygiene, just not hair hygiene. You're correct about that. So anyway, so there you go. There's my childhood picture. I'm almost out of coffee. It's a shame. 1983 was the year before Van Halen realized their album 1984, which included songs like Hot for Teacher and Top Jimmy. All right, thank you for the music lesson, James. I also don't have to cut my hair. Well, I think you do, Mark, but that's cool. Thank you very much, Jimmy. Very cool. All right, so you guys ready to talk to this stuff? Any questions before we get started about anything at all? If you have a question in the chat, you can do it. Otherwise, you know what? Save your question for the end. This is gonna be not that long of a lesson because I frankly, it's a tough conversation. So I'm gonna pause the chat in about 10 seconds, and then we're gonna talk. I'm gonna talk to you guys a little bit. I'm gonna try to be as respectful as I can to both sides of the argument. Even though I do have my opinions on it, I'm not going to share my opinion with you simply because I don't think that's appropriate. You have your parents and your families and your situation. I'm a different person than you, and we're not in the same family. We just know each other through school. So I'm not going to necessarily share my opinion and influence you in that way. Instead, I'm just going to kind of tell you what's going on, and then I'm going to try to... I hate when that happens. And then I'm going to try to kind of formulate ways that we can at least help thinking about it so we can formulate our own opinion. So I'm going to pause the chat, and then I'm going to be talking about it. It's probably only going to be about 15 minutes, and then we'll come back and I'll go over the question of the day and we'll call it, okay? So here we go. We're going to... What? I already shared my opinion. What do you mean I already shared my opinion? What's my opinion? Christian, what are you talking about? What's my opinion? We should have a liberal and a conservative fighting in the chat. No, we shouldn't. What's my opinion, Christian? I'm confused. I didn't share my opinion. Okay, gamer. Last. Should I redo it? Yeah, I didn't. Nah. All right, here we go. You guys ready? I'm gonna pause the chat now. Why do we keep doing last? Oh, because you want to get last in the chat before I pause it. That's a shame. All right, chat is paused. So what's going on? Okay, so obviously what happened I'm gonna start far back, and then we'll get to today and we'll talk about it. So obviously there was slavery in the United States. Slavery started in colonial America in Jamestown Colony. I believe the story is there was like a Dutch ship that didn't rescue, that's not the right word, but like took a bunch of Africans off of another ship that they attacked in the ocean. But the Dutch ship was on their way to Jamestown. When they showed up at Jamestown, they didn't know what to do with the Africans that they took off the ship, and so what did they do? They sold them to Jamestown as slaves. And those, like, I believe 7 Africans who were sold to Jamestown Colony as slaves in like 1613 became the first African-American slaves in the United States. And since then, slavery grew throughout the South, and then slavery, the big problem here is that slavery became a way of life. And then in the beginning, whites and blacks were both slaves. White slaves were called indentured servants, and black slaves were just slaves. And eventually they did away with indentured servitude, and so really slavery in the South only really focused on Africans. And then what happened is the South created a culture around it. And what do I mean by that is it wasn't just like they had slaves. Their whole way of living was built off of the back of the slave. And so what happened is, now we're getting a little bit into like theory here, but what I would imagine is that people in the South started to identify the African-American slave as a slave because they had guilt subconsciously over what they were doing, so they had to kind of remove them from looking at them as equals or as people. And this lasted for 150, 200 years. This is not something that went over, this wasn't like a 20-year period. This was a very long period. And so children were growing up in the South, being raised in schools and at their dinner tables and by their families, that Africans were inferior to them and that it was okay to have slaves. When slavery ended with the Civil War, obviously the only way to end that cultural institution because it was so embedded in their culture in the South that they couldn't just give up. They couldn't just say, hey, let's free the slaves, it's over, because that would basically be them saying, hey, let's get rid of everything our entire society and let's start over. And so there had to be a war to stop it, and that was the Civil War, right? And when the Civil War ended, that didn't end the problem of slavery. It ended slavery, but the problem of slavery continued, because you still have the people in the South who view African Americans as inferior back then, and they wanted them to be slaves, but they were forced into freeing them. And so immediately after the Civil War, there was a little period called Reconstruction, but I'll skip that for right now. Pretty much immediately, the white South started to create laws to keep African Americans from truly gaining equality in the United States on an equal footing with the majority population. And so African Americans in the United States, in the South, after the Civil War, it had segregation, right? Jim Crow laws. And these laws were designed to keep the culture and the institution of slavery as there as much as possible without having slaves. And so they had a black water fountain and a white water fountain, a black bathroom and a white bathroom, a black school and a white school. You know, African Americans had to sit on a certain car on the train or in certain seats on the bus. And it created this divide in our society, especially down south, where African Americans were treated as second-class citizens. And then you had the fact that this lasted, again, this wasn't something that lasted 20 years. This lasted from the 1870s all the way to like the 1960s. And so it's a big problem. We're talking about almost 100 years of this culture where, again, you have people being born and raised in families in the South, raising their kids that this is the way of the world, this is the way of life. And again, it's official because it's coming from the law, it's coming from the police force, it's coming from the government, where these Jim Crow laws and segregation and these inherently racist and policy, these inherently racist laws and policies are designed to stop black people from gaining equality. And every single time black people at the time really wanted to fight back, the laws were designed to stop them from fighting back and to keep them as second-class citizens. And over the years, people protested and people fought, and you have Martin Luther King Jr., and you have SNCC, right, the Student Committee, Activity Committee, you have like the Black Panther Party, Malcolm X, you have all these different people who fight. You have different white protesters, you have presidents and things that eventually push back. You have Lyndon B. Johnson, who helps, pass the Civil Rights Act. And all these things happen, and African Americans start to tiptoe, and I use that term seriously because it wasn't a big step, right? They slowly taking baby steps towards gaining true equality. And the area that they get it in first is in legal, right? So African Americans gain equality in the eyes of the law, but that doesn't mean that racism stops in the eyes of the people. And that's a big duality here, okay? So maybe America on paper starts to treat African Americans equally, but it doesn't mean that they change the ideas of different people, and all Americans all of a sudden are no longer racist and everything's good. So those are two different things. You can have the law, and then you can have a little bit of reality. Now, let's focus to today, okay? So what happened last week, obviously, was an African American man was being arrested by police officers in Minneapolis, and the police officers were over aggressive in their actions and led to the death of this man, and his name was George Floyd. And video came out, and now this is the thing I think we need to realize too. It's not that this is stuff like this has probably happened before. We know it's happened before, but with cell phones and videos and social media, videos get out a lot more often than they ever did before. So I'm sure in the 1960s and 70s there were incidences, as rare as they are, there were incidences like this. It's just that video of it never got out. Well, in 2020, obviously with cell phones, everyone has videos, and so video got out of the police officers doing this, and it got on the news and it got on social media, and people around the country in New York City and in Washington, D.C. and in Philadelphia and in Atlanta and in Miami and in, you know, all these cities, Chicago, across the United States, people are watching this video and they're outraged because in their eyes, it's basically the police officers being overly aggressive towards this man that and ultimately led to his passing. And they feel that it is another example, right? It's not a one-time thing. It is another example of them being held back and oppressed throughout the history of the United States. And this is just the latest example. And there it is. Now, police officers have been accused of being overly violent before in various parts of the country when it comes to African Americans, and what usually happens is the police officer kind of gets away with it. He doesn't get arrested, he doesn't get, you know, convicted and things like this. Now, to defend the police officer, most of the time there's always reasons, right? We like to think of things as black and white, but the truth of the matter is the world is gray. There's not necessarily a clear right and a clear wrong. There's a person trying to make the best decision they can make in the situation they find themselves in. And oftentimes, you know, we make mistakes, and so that person will make a mistake, and, you know, and then they have to live with that, and it gets very complicated. Obviously, in this George Floyd situation, though, this most recent example, it doesn't seem to be where the police officer made a bad decision and made a mistake. It seems to be that police officer was really blatantly being overly aggressive. Now, this is where it gets very sad and serious, because I know some of your parents are police officers. One of my best friends is a police officer, right? My brother-in-law was a police officer. He's FBI. And so, obviously there are million plus wonderful police officers across the country. Think of teachers, right? I'm a teacher. There are phenomenal teachers, but there are also bad teachers, right? There's a bad apple. There's one teacher who might do something and make the news and things like this, and it becomes this whole big conspiracy theory. And people will come up to me and be like, "Did you see that teacher hit that student and they caught it on video and that teacher got fired? Or did you see that teacher, dated that student in high school and that teacher got in trouble?" And it's disgusting, and it makes national news, and I watch it as a teacher and I'm like, "Oh my God, like that teacher is horrible for doing that." But it doesn't mean that all teachers are horrible, right? I know wonderful teachers, but there are literally probably more than 1 million teachers in this country. Of course, you're going to have bad ones. Forget bad teachers that don't do their job, but you're also going to have teachers that do things that are illegal. We're talking less than 1%, like a 0.0001% of that. And I would imagine, I can only assume, it's probably similar in the police force, where 99% of police officers are amazing people who do their job and are, mom and dad and our community, our neighbors, and they're amazing people. Unfortunately, in this situation here, is what's happening is because of a few bad police officers, right? Some Americans are acting like all police are the problem. Now, this is where the word institutional racism comes along, okay? So here's the other issue of it. Individually, they might not be the problem. Individually, you have wonderful police officers, right? You have wonderful teachers, things like this. But as a system, because historically speaking, in certain parts of this country, they've had Jim Crow laws and they've had slavery and things like this going back a long time, but also not going back so long. They were still fighting segregation in the early 80s in parts of this country, which was only 30 something years ago. So you have these systems where certain parts of our population view that the police are a little harder on them than they are on other people, okay? And so they feel like they're being bullied, so to speak, or treated unfairly. And so think of it like a teacher who constantly is yelling at a kid in class, and the kid starts to feel like they're being picked on. It's kind of like that, where communities, poorer communities down south in inner cities, things like this, they start to feel like they're being picked on by law enforcement. And then when you have the race card thrown into it too, they start to say, hey, we're being picked on because of our poor community. We're being picked on because of the race that we are. And this is where this whole race war thing kind of comes from. Now, I tried to, I don't know if you noticed this, I'm trying to be as delicate on both ends as I possibly can. I will say this. No one is wrong and no one is right. When you're talking about a situation like this, right, we're talking about perspectives. We're not talking about truth, we're talking about perspectives. So like James said at the beginning of my chat, he said, how are we gonna debate this topic when both people, half the group's gonna fall to the left and half the group's gonna fall to the right? And he's right. Well, the way to debate it, and the way I think that you should be looking at this is try to look at it from the perspective of everyone involved, right? And then be compassionate to their situation. That's really it. So like try to look at it from the shoes of the police officer who's out there protecting society, protecting the community, trying to get people to follow the law. They have people who break the laws every day. We know this, right? And they have to deal with these people. They have to deal with violent people. They have to deal with people who basically are going to threaten their lives, right? And police officers have to keep this all in their head, aware of the situation while also trying to protect people. Super hard job. And then, right, and so they're feeling like that they're risking their neck for America, and they're risking their neck to help keep order, and they're being vilified for it, right? But then look at it from the other person's shoes. If you're a poor kid growing up in the inner city and you see police officers patrolling your streets every day, and you see police officers arresting people, I guess I could imagine that you would feel like you're being picked on a little bit, and then whether it's justified or not, that's what you are seeing from your perspective, right? And then I can understand there being frustration and anger because nobody likes to be bullied, right? No one likes to be picked on. And then on top of that, when you talk about protesting versus riots, I guess you have to understand, like, riots are it's really a terrible thing, because I have friends that own small business. We have a friend who owns a salon in Bayshore, and she owns a small business. It's her salon. She owns it. If people came by and were rioting and they broke her windows, like, she's the one that has to pay for that. And she's not racist. She's not affecting anyone, right? So it's super unfortunate for her. But at the same time, I understand the frustration of people, right? If you feel like that you call the police and they're the ones bullying you, so you can't trust them, and you feel like you go through the legal system, but the laws aren't designed to help you. Police officers have done things in the past and they've gotten away with it, and you just feel frustrated. And on top of that, you're talking since the 1960s when segregation officially ended, and 1970s and 1980s and 1990s and 2000s. We're talking 30, 40 years of modern day oppression in that sense, and feeling like bullied. I guess I understand frustration. And so part of me is like, rioting is bad, but then part of me says like, well, the frustration is real and we have to respect that. And so the only way that you really need to look at the current event is to try to think about the other person's perspective. Doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It just means that that person has their perspective. You can't take a kid who lives in the projects in a poor community in New York City and expect them to understand the position of the police force. And it works both ways. It's very difficult to take the police force who, they get paid decent salaries and they're educated and they're trained, and expect them to understand the perspective of that teenager, that 20-year-old who lives in complete poverty in the inner city, who feels like they're being bullied. So those are two different areas, Think of it between a teacher and a student, It's very difficult for the teacher to understand the perspective of the student who feels like the teacher's picking on them in class, because the teacher is a 40-year-old educated person who's focusing on their subject. They have a job to do. They have to get their curriculum, taught, and they have to focus on the lesson. And the kid has a completely different perspective, right? The kid can't understand the teacher's perspective. The kid hasn't been educated. The kid isn't 40 years old. The kid's just a kid. They don't pay their own bills. They're not necessarily as focused on the subject that teacher's job is. Their job is something different. They have all the subjects to deal with. They have the mom and dad to deal with at home. They have a big brother. They have their friends and the pressures of life. And so it's really unfortunate because this situation was caused because of years of racism in this country, starting back in slavery, and then two groups of people that have completely different perspectives on the situation, trying to convince the other side that they're right. But you can't convince the other side that they're right because they don't see it from your perspective. And so the thing I'll ask you, the student right now in Santa Mauritius and Mastic, is that try to think about the other person's perspective. Try to put yourself in their shoes and say to yourself, if I was a police officer, how would I feel? If I was a black kid living in an inner city and feeling like I was being bullied by the police, how would I feel? If I was a small business owner and rioters came through my neighborhood and wrecked my store, how would I feel? Like, that's the only way you can do it. You have to try to put yourself in the shoes of the other people, Even President Trump or our political leaders, like if I was President Trump, how would I feel about this situation? What's the right way to handle it? Unfortunately for him, there is really no right way because we're talking about 300 years of problems. The George Floyd is just another example of this coming up. A few years ago there were riots because of other people. There was a gentleman in New York City who was killed by police, and there was a guy who was breaking the law in another state who the police attacked, and they caught it on video. But that, and then some of these people are bad people, and you're like, well, I understand the police are just doing the job, but other times the police go too far, and 99% of the police are awesome. It's a mess, guys. It is a mess, and that's kind of why it's difficult to think about. So I'm going to ask you to, when you do the question of the day, to think about it in the perspective of trying to put yourself in everyone's shoes, and try not to make a judgment. Don't say like they're horrible for rioting, or the police are horrible for doing what they did, or whatever. Try to say to yourself, well, why would the police feel that way, or why would government feel that way, or why would angry people living in a poor community feel that way? Why would black people feel this way? Like, try to put yourself and be a little bit more empathetic, right? Have empathy to the other person. And that's why I would say it's okay. It's not a right or left thing. It doesn't matter if you're a right, conservative or a liberal left, right? Or if you support Trump or you don't support Trump. It doesn't matter. What matters is trying to put yourself in that person's shoes and say, are they doing the best job in their eyes, right? Because every president we've ever had, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, George Bush, doesn't matter, right? They are doing the best job that they think is the right thing to do. A lot of people didn't like Obama. Obama did what Obama thought was the best thing to do for him. And I don't mean selfishly. I mean, like, he literally said, this is the right choice. This is what we should be doing, what's best for America, in his opinion. That's what he did. Donald Trump's doing the same thing. He's saying, like, this is what's best for America according to Donald Trump. And that's what he's doing. And that's really all you can ask them to do. You can only tell someone, hey, try to think of what you think is the right thing to do, and then you do that thing. Because what's the alternative? The alternative is that a president or a government leader is knowingly doing something that they don't think is the right thing, and that's not good. So I think sometimes we vilify our leaders because they might do something that we don't agree with, but we forget the fact that they're doing what they think is the right thing. And this is why voting is so important, because if you disagree with the current leader as saying like, well, I don't think that is the right thing, then you vote for someone that you think has an idea that's similar to yours. You know what I mean? But they're all trying to do what's best for America, including some of the people protesting, right? They're trying to make America better for them. in their eyes. You know, police too. They're trying to make America better and safer by making people follow the law in their eyes. So again, we're talking perspectives, and that's why we have to be empathetic and reasonable and understand that different people from different positions. The only way to truly understand what's going on is to try to put yourself in their shoes. Now this week, check this out. I got something special. We're gonna do our question of the day, and it's gonna be epic. Hold on. Hold on. We're gonna mute some stuff here. All right, you ready? I'm excited. Here we go. Question of the day. Don't laugh at me, James. Here we go. It's the question of the day. Question of the day. Question of the day, day. It's the question of the day. Question of the day. Question of the day. It's the question of the day. Question of the day. Question of the day. Question of the day. Dude, it's glorious. How glorious is that? One more. Question of the day. Yes. Oh my Lord. Listen, I've done a lot of embarrassing things in my life. A lot. That's okay though. Sometimes, listen. Sometimes you just gotta look back at the trees and say, it's okay. All right, I'm gonna open chat up now. Let's get the chat going. Let's go to chat. Let's enable the chat. No fighting, no talking about politics in the chat. So question of the day this week. All right, so question of the day. So Monday and Tuesday are the same question. And this is how it's going to work. How's my audio? Everything good? Everything on? Yep, good. All right, so the question of the day is going to work like this. There's a reading. Nah, Ryan, you don't have to, Ryan. We're going to talk about it when it settles down a little bit. You know what I mean? Because I have a news article that you guys are going to read about it, and then when you have a little bit more like actual information, we can talk about it again. You couldn't hear the song? Don't make me do it. You're going to make me turn the song up here? All right, here we go. Here we go. You just asked for it. Here we go. It's the question of the day, question of the day, question of the day, day. It's the question of the day, question of the day, question of the day. It's the question of the day, question of the day, question of the day, question of the day. Question of the day. Like, that's going to be a top hit. That's going to be listen, if any of the ladies out there want to do a TikTok song based off that, just let me know. I'll shoot it right over. It's good stuff. All right, so I'm out of breath now. Okay, so what you're going to do is right here. Question of the day is read the News ELA article and complete the writing prompt below. Write a paragraph that explains the central idea of the article. What is in your opinion, on the killing of George Floyd and the following riots and protests that followed? Use at least 2 details from the article to support your response. Now, this is a 2-day question because it's a little bit meaty. Okay, and the article is right here. And I tried to find a nice article that was that kind of covered the basic from both sides, right? And so I kind of screened through this, right? And it talks about like basically what happened and how the Floyd's the rioting started and the protest started, and then talks about volunteers trying to clean up after the rioting and the protests from their perspective. It talks about how the government is trying to stop rioting and things like this through curfews and the police and things like this. It showed it talks about how National Guard have been called in. There's a lot. This is why I don't want to really have an open debate about this right now. It's still too new. This is going on right now. I mean, there were protests last night. There's probably going to be protests tonight. So we just need to learn about it and understand what's happening and then make opinions after the fact, Some protests stayed peaceful, so it's important to understand that not all protesters turned violent or became rioters. Turn the mic up. Did you hear anything I just said? Ryan? Derek? Was anything I just said? You can't hear me. Great. You can hear me now. Right? Can you hear me now? Yeah? All right, that was a disaster. Thanks. So what I was saying is this article covers all of the different perspectives of it, right? We're talking about the military being called in, the peaceful protesters, the rioting protesters, the volunteers who clean up after the protesters happen or the riots happen. We talk about the curfews the government set in, the different way the police forces are called, the National Guard's being called in, and all this stuff basically. And I wanted you to read this article and kind of get a general idea of the complexity of the situation. It's still happening. It happened last night. If we go to CNN or Fox News, right? Look at this. Monday, Bloody Monday. Rioting, looting linked to George Floyd protests leaves trail of destruction across American cities. So this is Chicago. This is New York. Manhattan mayhem, luxury stores looted in New York City as Mayor de Blasio, limited protest activity. Minneapolis restaurant is burned to the ground. So there's still things, there's still stuff going on. If we go to CNN, right, America in crisis, there's protests in front of the White House and Lafayette Square, Lafayette Park. There's the mayor of New York City's daughter was arrested with the protesters. So there's a lot of really interesting things of police officers who actually join protesters, right? Which is interesting, right? They have police officers right here. New York police officers kneel with protesters. So you could see the police officers are also taking part in it, trying to understand the community that is frustrated and upset, which is a wonderful. Stuff like this is wonderful, not because I'm saying we should support the protesters. I'm simply saying it's wonderful because it shows that there are groups of people that are trying to understand the other person's perspective, and that's the way to peace and equality and things like that, is to understand the other person's perspective and be compassionate and empathetic towards them. And that's what this is right here. So both on Fox News and CNN, you can kind of see all the stuff that's happening, and that's why you're going to be reading about this, and that's why we're not really open for conversation yet. So once you do that, you're going to read the article. Everyone has it. You write your answer, and that's Monday and Tuesdays. Wednesday, I'm going to give you a thinking question, meaning it's going to make you ponder. Right? I put in my new thing. Hold on. My field of dreams. Right? You're going to be like, I wonder about things, and that's going to be Wednesday's question. And then Thursday's question, I'm going to do a political cartoon, and you're going to kind of look at the political cartoon and answer the questions. And that's your question of the week. Could there be another civil war? No, James, there could not. Not right now, anyway. Because the Civil War happened, James, because the South was united against the North. Right now, there is no group united against another group. You have pockets of people protesting throughout the country, all throughout the country, and you have pockets of people all throughout the country against the protesters. So where would the lines of the Civil War be? Right now, more than a civil war, it's just civil unrest, Yes, I saw that, Christian. They did spray paint on some Washington memorials, protesting slogans and things like that. So it's a complicated thing. No offense to Mario Lemieux. I care more about the Lincoln Memorial than the Mario Lemieux, and they spray painted on the Lincoln Memorial. So, yeah. So read the article, do that. That's what today's question of the day is. That's pretty much it for today, guys. Any last questions? If there is a civil war, the weapons would just be coughing on each other. That is kind of funny and kind of sad, Alex. I'm kind of split in the middle on that one. I like the joke, and yet it's not good. Very funny, bad, Alex. I'm split. Okay. Yeah, so read it, educate yourself, learn about it. It's definitely complicated, and be compassionate to each other. Understand that you have classmates who are black, and you have classmates who have family members who are police officers, and you have classmates who aren't as wealthy as other classmates, and you have classmates who, you know, have family members who are directly affected by this, and you just have to understand everyone's perspective, you know. You can't sit there preaching like you know everything and that you are like oh my, you can't go around preaching that the police are all evil, because they're not. And if someone's parent is a police officer who's doing their hardest to be the best police officer in the world, you're going to make them feel terrible, and you don't understand their situation or the things that are said at their dinner table. And if you go around talking about how the rioters are all evil, again, you don't know whose family members are out there in the city being treated unequally. You don't know the experiences they've had in their lives, and so you're vilifying them when you don't know. So try to understand what everyone's going through and be understanding. Put yourself in their position, right? It's like a person who's scared of a dog. Like, I like dogs, right? But I had a friend who's terrified of dogs. And after a while, I was like, yo, why do you not like dogs? And he was like, well, when he was younger, a dog attacked him. He had an experience that most dogs don't attack people, right? Dogs are amazing, but yet this person had an experience that was negative, and it created this perspective in their head, and you have to respect that. That is why you stay away from the city. Well, cities are beautiful places. I don't know about that. All right, so that's it for today, and I hope you guys have a good day. I will see you tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel. And yeah, we're gonna go out on my favorite one. Here we go. Bye.